One standout in the 2019 IPO class has been Turning Point Therapeutics. Its stock is up 23% since it first traded back in April. Joining us right now to talk more about her business pre- and post-IPO is Dr. Athena Countouriotis, CEO of Turning Point Therapeutics. How did I do?
Pretty good.
Almost?
Athena was accurate, so that's fine.
Contour.
Countouriotis.
Countouriotis.
Yeah. Countouriotis.
Yes, but with all credit, your last name is much easier than mine.
Let me ask you this, because we started this segment or came into this segment talking about sort of the IPO class, this vintage. What do you think is going on right now in terms of how the market is looking at all of these companies? And I know that they're not one monolith, and clearly you're a standout relative to what we've seen.
Well, I think part of the reason that we've outperformed all the other biotech IPOs of the year, and I think just across almost all IPOs outside of also biotech, is that we've delivered on the promises that we made. I mean, we did a lot of marketing before launching our IPO. We had a very strong scientific platform. We have more than one molecule. We've now advanced essentially almost our third into the clinic since the IPO. We've had consistent improvement in our clinical data for our lead asset. And having that clinical data really was the premise for us in terms of building on the foundation of our science and being able to support that, yes, we had strong science, but being able to show when we translated that into the clinic.
I want to ask about this, by the way.
This is one of the key pieces.
You are our biotech expert here.
It is interesting. So these are tyrosine kinase inhibitors, correct? You've got a small molecule, that is less likely to be mutated around by lung cancer. Is that?
So what we've done is, as you know very well, targeted oncology is a precedent that precedes us. But what we took is that our scientific founder is a chemist by training, and she decided to design an entire platform of smaller molecules that are essentially little circles called macrocycles.
No steric interference.
That's exactly right, Joe. So less steric interference with the ATP binding pocket within the kinase.
And it binds very tightly.
Wait, which means what?
It means the cancer can't mutate around.
It catches it.
That's
and this really works. Tyrosine kinase inhibitors actually work.
Tyrosine kinase inhibitors is a $20 billion market within oncology alone. I mean, Gleevec really was the paradigm in 2001 to start this market off.
Cancer mutates around it, and you get these big molecules, and it's easier with big molecules to mutate around it. So this is a very tight binding.
That's the scientific rationale I was saying. I mean, the story resonated to investors because we were going after treatment resistance, right? And so we were going after a patient population. They've already been treated with a TKI. Unfortunately, their tumor has continued to progress.
There's a big unmet need for that.
And now there's nothing approved.
How long were you a private company before you went public?
So we were about 5 years private, and I did watch your segment this morning. We had raised much less capital than the commentary this morning.
But you've done a secondary as well.
We have done a secondary, and as you guys know better than anyone, being able to do a secondary that's larger than your IPO within your IPO lockup window is really unparalleled. And I mean, I think that's, again, a testament to the investors we brought into the IPO that believed in us again. We did that just a month ago at over 100% premium to the IPO price. How much of this, though, I mean, in this sort of larger conversation that's being had about investors, see, I think there's a difference here, and this is why I think this is succeeding. A, not only are you nailing the numbers, but B, because you were only for 5 years and you hadn't taken crazy amounts of money prior, right? I mean, don't you think that's a huge part of this? I do. I think that we had very strong investors previously when we were a private company, and in today's environment, if we needed them to do a 100% insider participated IPO, they would have done it. We didn't need that. We had enough with the story that was resonating.
Go,
instead
science
of
professor.
All these business
business questions, you go for the science.
Did your chemists start with the bigger molecules and find the most important part of the? They didn't design it from scratch.
No. So Jean is our chief scientific officer. She was the founder of the company.
And how did she do it?
She had developed 2 prior tyrosine kinase inhibitors that are incredibly successful.
From bigger molecules.
Yes, that are bigger and that are not necessarily smaller circles. Also, they weren't closed loops. So she had a history of doing this successfully twice prior to founding Turning Point.
I just can't imagine doing that chemical.
There was that side of the story, and then my side of the story was also that I have been a part of 4 tyrosine kinase inhibitors that have been brought to market. And so the balance of our team, I think, again, resonated to the street when we were out marketing the offering, earlier this year, right after the government shut down.
So are we increasingly moving towards where chemists are going to be designing some of these drugs rather than molecular biologists?
What I think you saw was a wave of immuno-oncology coming into favor.
That's all molecular biology.
Clearly. In addition, obviously, everything that's happening outside of oncology and gene therapy. We're kind of going back into that wave. I saw a fun fact the other day. If your portfolio was exclusively within precision oncology, which predominantly would be TKIs, you would be up 200% since 2015.
Because it works.
Exactly.
Right. Athena, can you use this beyond lung cancer? I mean,
absolutely. And so the way that our pipeline was built is specifically looking at oncogenic driver mutations, and that could be relevant for lung, colon, other smaller indications within breast, because these are subpopulations of larger tumor types. You probably all know the Loxo Oncology story very well. Incredibly successful company. They went after TREC, which is a different target than ROS1, which is what we focused on predominantly. But TREC is also just, in general, solid tumors.